Hey everyone, it's Jyoti Reiki, and I just finished speaking to Sean Spiller. He's the former mayor of Montclair and the current president of the New Jersey Education Association. We talked about some of his perspectives and his priorities as he runs for governor. Take a listen. Thank you so much for joining us, Sean.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
So why don't we start off with talking a little bit about what your priorities are as you run for governor and, why people should vote for you for governor.
Yeah, well, let me first talk about the priorities. There's, four main things, and it's about making New Jersey more affordable. It's guided by my lived experiences. I came to this country as a young boy. I'm an immigrant from Jamaica, and my parents came here. My mom was a math teacher there because of the great schools and wanted a great opportunity for my brother and I. But I also saw my parents, and my dad would be away for months at a time, sending dollars home, and they had to sacrifice to make it work. I've seen it as a high school science teacher. The parents of the kids that come in want to be able to provide maybe tutoring or some other things, and they just can't afford it. I've seen it as a mayor and a council person where house prices just keep going up, rents keep increasing. New Jersey is just a hard place to afford, and everything I've ever done has really shown me that. And so for me, it's about focusing on making New Jersey more affordable, and that means addressing the issues around housing. That's home ownership and rentals. It means quality early education and childcare. We've got to invest there so people can have access and afford it. We've got to have quality healthcare that doesn't keep going up 20, 30, 40% every year. And of course, we've got to address the issues around the environment and energy prices, which are linked and keep going up. So that's the focus. I understand it's in the context of what's happening in the White House, though, and certainly the attacks that we're facing. And certainly I'm ready to push back and stand up for every New Jersey resident in this state.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And we're definitely going to get to some of those top issues that you just mentioned. Affordability, education, certainly some of the main things that voters are thinking about this year as they head to the polls here shortly. But as you know, this video is going to be shared with the larger AAPI community. So I want to ask you what you think some of the key issues are facing Asian Americans here in New Jersey, how you've engaged with the community and what you plan on doing to resolve some of the issues that they're facing.
Yeah, maybe I'll frame it the same way I just did in my opening, understanding that, look, there are baseline issues that affect, certainly the AAPI community and all communities, but it's around, how do we have job opportunities and certainly opportunities when we talk about, the disparity study, like we just saw in New Jersey, where predominantly our white male businesses get afforded all government contracts and certainly build from there. Well, guess what? Our diverse state and certainly the AAPI community, our small business owners and others want access to those projects, want access to certainly the bonding and the other pieces that will allow them to go forward. It's a huge piece. The disparity that exists right now is key in this state for so many communities, especially the AAPI community. And we've got to address that, right? Folks want a New Jersey that works for them. And certainly, though, everything we talk about, whether it is certainly, supporting folks with, opportunities like I just described, we're still in the context of right now in this country and in the state, we're seeing, more hate crimes. We are seeing more national threat, right, in terms of the language that we hear from the White House. We're seeing especially as we came through COVID here, just the challenges around mental health support, legal assistance, all the different things that existed, but I think have been exacerbated, and certainly with his rhetoric at the national level has put more of a focus and more danger, more harm that's out there right now as well. So as governor, I understand that we have to specifically push back against those instances and things that we see spiking in terms of the hate and the targeting. But there are still the broader context of issues, the ones I described in my introduction, that the AAPI community wants to have a better shot and better access to as we break down systems that have been designed to keep folks, minorities like me and others, out of the opportunities that exist for others.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get more into depth with hate crimes, mental health, all those things that you just touched upon. But I want to ask you, can you specifically commit to, any sort of resolutions or, events or tabling or, I don't know, community engagement programs that you might do? What can you commit to right now to the Asian American community to kind of help resolve some of the things that you just touched upon, I think?
Sure. Well, listen, it is always through conversation. I think that's how it happens, and through partnership, right? I'll give an example because I am an educator, right? And certainly for me, I understood the importance of making sure that all of our students are seen both in our past so they can understand and see themselves in our future. Was really, really proud to partner with the AAPI community as we work to make sure that our curriculum included that, right? Included that for all our students to be able to learn. That only happened because of conversation, and then, of course, through advocacy and the work in pressing our legislators and others to move forward on. it's an example of what I would do as governor, right? Continue to engage with the community broadly, have the conversations needed, and then find tangible things such as that where we can make progress and certainly advance the mission that we're all pushing for here.
Yeah, I was going to get to education later, but since we're kind of naturally coming to it, I knew that we would talk about education, obviously, with
I would think, right?
your background and your current role. Obviously, we all know that you were a teacher as well. And I don't know if you're familiar with some of the programming and the initiatives that AAPI New Jersey, has taken part of and is continuing to take a part of. But I want to talk about the curriculum mandate, which requires that Asian American stories are part of the curriculum and that, historic contributions from Asian Americans and Asians throughout history are taught in the classroom. So that has been in effect since 2022. So I want to ask you, this is from the Murphy administration, how do you intend on continuing on with these curriculum mandates? Do you intend on building upon them? And funding has been a little bit of an issue with making sure that teachers have, the background
resources and the training. Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. I would say this. The answer is yes, I'm committed, but I want to just frame it in this way as well. Like, it's been very frustrating to me to watch where we've had the Amistad curriculum for a long time now, but in practice that has not occurred in so many of our districts. And finally, through an accountability system, it's called CUSAC, but through an accountability system, through opportunities where the state and others will go in and kind of observe what's happening, we're finally starting to see where more and more districts are being pushed to say, hey, listen, while we've had this and it's been a requirement, you haven't really been doing it. We've got to do more of it. I think it's the same thing as we're talking right now about the AAPI curriculum, right? We've got to make sure that districts are implementing it. We've got to make sure that, yes, on the support side, we're providing the tools and the trainings. That means dollars. And certainly governor, as an education governor, I'm going to be committed to that. But it's also then on the other side, the accountability side to say, hey, listen, this is important in every single one of our districts. And we've got to make sure that's happening. It took far too long to really see Amistad be rolled out in a way that functionally was occurring. We can't have the same thing happen here.
So can you tell me how much more funding, perhaps? I don't know if you can give me a number today, in your budget. Like, funding is definitely an issue. We have this mandate, but there aren't a lot of programs that are training teachers to have the background in this. AAPI New Jersey has the TAS initiative, where teachers have been getting training and they work for, I believe it's several months, to learn a little bit more about this history and then to bring it into the classroom. They also get like lesson plans and everything like that, but it's a very small portion of state funding that they are receiving. So how much would you...
Let me talk about it in the context of the broader conversation here, right? Because I think this is a perfect example of the challenges that we face as well, right? Here in New Jersey, we are at risk right now of losing about $1.1 billion in education funding from the federal level. Just a couple weeks ago, right, they sent out the memo saying New Jersey has to commit to not teaching any DEI in any of our schools, or we risk losing all that funding. Happy to work with the Commissioner of Education and our state Attorney General to push back on that and say, of course, we're going to teach DEI. We're one of the most diverse states, and we celebrate that diversity, and it's New Jersey law to do so. But I understand that on the other side of that are a threat to cut funds. When you look at the education, the president just put forward his template for a budget, and in it are massive cuts to education. Much of it to training for educators around DEI, training for educators around the very programs you're talking about, right? So I understand the context is yes, about how do we add and support and add dollars to what we're trying to do. But the other side of that ledger is we are going to be faced with a federal administration that is going to be cutting massively as well. So look, as governor, here's what I will tell everybody who's listening. I will be using the power of the bully pulpit. I will be working with legislators. I will be asking all of you to say, we need to rally, right? They are stealing all of these dollars so they can give massive tax breaks to billionaires like Elon Musk and Donald Trump. We need to change New Jersey tax code to be able to capture every one of those dollars and to invest them in programs such as you're describing and so many other programs that we need here in this state. We cannot on our own make up for the $22.5 to $26.5 billion, which are estimated that we get from the federal government by fancy math or somehow figuring it out in state. We have got to go after the dollars that they're stealing from us to give to themselves as billionaires, get those dollars and invest. That's how I can commit to backing up what I say with the dollars that we're talking about. Because I think you're going to hear from a lot of candidates that they support this or support that. But one of the key distinctions that folks will hear from me is the process of how I'm going to fund that and have the dollars to do it.
Great. Let's stick with those dollars. Let's talk about a little bit more funding. In New York and California, the governors have introduced budgets that include millions of dollars in funding for nonprofits that specialize in working with Asian American communities. So AAPI New Jersey has proposed that our state do the same and provide funding to support things like domestic violence programs, health centers, community programs, and other vital services that reach the 1 million plus Asian Americans that live right here in the state. So would you support something like this in your state budgets?
I would, right? I absolutely would, because I think, you asked in your first question, like, what's the difference between you, Sean, and maybe some of the others? I told you about the policies and where we're going, but the big difference, and I think this is broadly where we always find ourselves, every election, whether it's nationally, here in the state, we're talking about governor, they require you to have millions and millions of dollars to run, right? And then when folks need those dollars, they go to where they always do, which is to millionaires, billionaires, very rich corporations. And those millionaires, billionaires, and very rich corporations always want the systems to continue to work the way they do, which is the income gap getting worse than it's ever been, which is high-end luxury developments where they can make massive profits occurring, but no affordable housing, right? All of the different things that get us what we get keep happening. I'm running right now to represent the middle class because I have lived that life, right? It's who I represent each and every day. I'm fighting for us because until we center ourselves in the conversation, we can't expect that these big money interests, these big political bosses, politically powerful, are ever going to center us as well. So I say this, we need the dollars to invest. As you're asking that question, yes, I support it because we never have enough dollars supporting the programs that we need. But to get those dollars to do it, they have to come from somewhere. And for me, they should come from folks who have not been paying their fair share for far too long and are literally trying to take advantage of us to an even greater degree right now. We need to watch those massive tax giveaways they're giving. We need to tax them here in New Jersey, right? Dollar for dollar, getting every one of those back and investing them in New Jersey. We usually get less dollars back than we give. So by keeping them here in New Jersey, it'll even go further. So yes, and I think many can give a commitment like a yes when they come on here, but the difference is I'm showing you where the dollars are going to come from to keep that commitment.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I think that the voters will really be engaged with your response. And I want to stick with the economy and dollars because that is obviously, I don't need to tell you, that is one of the most important issues as this election cycle, is well underway. In an exit poll of Asian Americans here in New Jersey, the majority said that the economy is the number one issue that they care about. And you know this, you've been here in New Jersey for quite some time. New Jersey is one of the least affordable states here in the country. So I want to ask you, what is your plan to make it easier for people to not only live here, but also to raise their children here and remain here even well through retirement?
Yeah, it's one of the huge pieces. You heard me talk about that as I started. So first, let's talk about housing. It's probably the biggest cost that folks pay, right? On the home ownership side, you're talking to somebody who took 2 years to be able to afford my first home in Montclair, was able to afford a multifamily, living in a 1-bedroom with a 4-bedroom above, lived in it until the birth of our second child. And then finally we were like, we've got to find something, right? But I understand right now, most people, you can't even buy that home because we've got ultra rich corporations. We've got LLCs, venture capitalists that are gobbling up all of our properties and then they're raising the rent. And if we're trying to bid on a home, they're bidding us up so high that our mortgage is unaffordable. As governor, I will create a period where we, the people, have a chance to buy homes first. We're not competing against them that push us out or drive us up. Secondly, I've seen it where the banks, they hold on to abandoned properties and tease them back on the market so they can keep costs high. I'd move to make sure they put them back on so there's more opportunity for us to purchase homes there as well. On the rental side, I've seen it here in Montclair, passing the first ever rent control law because we saw massive increases through COVID. And what that has meant is that's great. It's a nice stopgap, but we have to invest. So many communities are being left on their own to build the rental units needed. And what developers are doing is they're taking advantage. They're saying, we'll build you 20 affordable units, but we want 400 high-end luxury for the 20 you're going to get, and maybe even throw in a tax break. As governor, I will invest dollars to say, no. You're going to build something much more in line with the character of our community, but we're going to build way more affordable housing. We're going to build workforce housing because there's folks who can't afford to live in the town but don't qualify. We're going to add senior housing, veteran housing, folks with disabilities, layer it on so that we can have truly inclusive communities. Housing is a huge one. Healthcare, I'm the only one running for governor who's literally designed healthcare plans that have saved billions of dollars for both the employers and the employees. And I know how to do it, which is the transparency that's missing that we need now from Horizon and others to see where they're increasing our costs. I've done it on the plans we've designed, and I would look at it statewide as well to keep those costs down. It's quality early education and certainly our childcare costs. I say it knowing the average cost is $19,000 a year. I've got the little ones right now. We're utilizing it. And certainly that's unaffordable. I would change the way folks are compensated. Right now it's based on attendance. I would change it to enrollment. That's how it provides some stability to the providers. It also cut through the red tape, allowing more folks to do the work, again, having more access for families. And lastly, environment and energy costs. We're seeing a 20% increase in our energy bills right now. We're seeing another 20% to come. And it's because we're still beholden to big oil. And they're seeing right now that we're using more energy. All of these alternative energies are being cut off by the Trump administration, and therefore they're raising their price. Well, as governor, I will invest. I will invest, yes, being nimble, right? Solar, battery technologies, but also laying that foundation for wind and other sources to say we've got to get more energy on our grid. It's good for the environment, but it's going to keep your bill down. That's important as well. So tying all those things together is how we keep more money in people's pockets. That's fundamentally the most important way. And I can tell you as a mayor, I understand that as a state, you've got to invest. Because as mayor, look, I'm really proud to have been part of here over a $60 million debt reduction. It's got us our AAA bond rating, save us on debt services that we can reinvest. So being smart about the finances is important. But if you have constantly unfunded mandates from the state, there's only one place folks can turn, and that's to property taxes. So as governor, I will understand that a much more progressive way is through our income tax, through the corporate taxes and fees, et cetera. We've got to invest those dollars in our mandates so the communities aren't left to raise property taxes. So with that combination of things, that's how we make New Jersey more affordable for every single resident.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're a little bit more than halfway through, and I really want to get to immigration as well, because that's a big issue. I'm sure that you've watched what's going on in Newark with Delaney Hall. Just your reaction to the fact that there's the potential now that migrants are being housed there without proper permits.
Yeah, well, listen, I'll say this on the broader issue. Look, first, it's personal to me. I am an immigrant, as I said before. And it's unconscionable to me that I'm watching literally in this country right now where, God forbid, you speak up on a college campus as a professor or a student, and maybe someone will pull away your naturalization process. And I understand how long that took and send you away, right? That's a problem. I see it now where kids in K-12 are staying home because their parents are worried that armed ICE agents are going to come into classrooms and rip kids out and separate them from their families, right? This is the reality of where we are. We have to understand, though, every single person watching this should understand it's not somebody else they're coming for. It's all of us. Because when they walk into a room and they say, show me your papers, I always say, like, what papers am I carrying? Do I look American enough? Do you? Because they're rounding up right now people who've served in the U.S. military, U.S. citizens. And God forbid they make an administrative error and send somebody away, they're making no effort to bring them back. So in the context of all of this, we all collectively need to realize, like, this is how it starts, folks, and they're coming after all of us. So when you ask it, look, as governor, I will work, and do everything I can to protect every New Jersey resident. That means not cooperating in any way with data sharing or information that's going to put people at risk, not trying to scare folks and push them underground. Again, this is just not who we are, and we can't lose sight of that as a nation. And certainly as an immigrant myself, I'm going to be standing up for every single person in our communities to say, you will have a governor that's got your back and supporting you and making sure that we're not coming after you and cooperating with the federal government who's trying to do that as well.
And so do you support the opening of more of these?
Of course not. No, I don't support the opening, right? It's again, part of the problem, right? And again, when resources are so limited, right, always, and we're talking about affordability and all the other pieces, we've got to invest dollars in things that help make life easier for New Jersey residents, not divert dollars to pieces that, detract from what we can do and certainly collectively help support folks with.
Okay. And as you know, at least 1.7 million Asian Americans nationally are undocumented. According to the American Immigration Council here in New Jersey, immigrants account for 35% of entrepreneurs. We talked about small business earlier, 42% of STEM workers and 30% of nurses. So I want to ask you, do you support codifying the New Jersey Immigrant Trust Directive through the New Jersey Immigrant Trust Act?
So I 100% do. I think it's just a travesty that it is not in law already. It should never be taking this long. As governor, if it's not in place, I will immediately push to have it in place. And listen, you cited a number of numbers there of the way immigrants are a huge piece of our economy and certainly our communities. Listen, I want to add to that. Let's have 100% of the folks elected to be governor right now be an immigrant, right? And the only person that fits that bill is me, right? So listen, we need to fundamentally understand the contributions that are there. But yes, I support the Immigrant Trust Act. I want to make sure we're protecting folks, and it's exactly in line with what I was saying before.
Okay, great. And just really quickly, how about full funding for the Defense and Deportation Initiative?
Listen, I think again, right now we're seeing where the federal government is spending significant resources, time, effort, energies, policing efforts to distract in many ways from the dollars that they're stealing from us as well. And certainly as governor on all these issues, as you're hearing clearly from me, I will be standing up for every New Jersey resident. I will be investing the dollars needed to make sure we're protecting folks. And certainly that's on every level in every way. I'll be using, at the state level, I'll be using executive orders to be able to react quickly to what Donald Trump is doing, be using the power of the budget, be working with a strong attorney general to uphold New Jersey laws, not sharing information. The list goes on and on. I will be doing all I can to stand up for every New Jersey resident.
Let's talk about Attorney General. What would you look for in an Attorney General?
Look, someone who's going to be aggressive. I think our current Attorney General has done a good job. I'm really proud to have worked with him, especially on a lot of education issues, to share information, to make sure that folks who are teaching our kids or in our communities can reflect on or share stories where a community is not following New Jersey law, and he's been very receptive to that. I think he's done a great job of certainly pushing back along with other states' attorneys general to file lawsuits, et cetera. We're going to need more of that, right? We're going to need somebody who's aggressively working through the courts, but also understanding that the courts right now are somewhat stacked, right, against us. And, we can't just rely on the courts. We've got to also have our own mobilizing and actions that occur and speaking up and speaking out and using the executive power of the governor's office to also help move things along.
Okay, great. And staying with the Attorney General, you might be familiar with Victoria Lee. The Attorney General is still investigating. That was an officer-involved death. She was going through a mental health episode and she was killed about a year ago now at this point. What is your message to the Asian American community, specifically here, in North Jersey, as they're still kind of healing and reeling, I think, from that? And if you can squeeze this in as well, I know we don't have a lot of time, but what are your plans to kind of help facilitate better partnership between police and mental health?
Yeah, well, I think it's a huge piece of it. Listen, you are literally talking to a Black man here who, is keenly aware, right, of the relationship that exists between police and the community, and certainly, especially some in the community, those of color. So, look, we have got to do a better job, and I think we see that somewhat starting now, whether it's countywide or more broadly. Where we've got folks who are, answering a call or at least joining a call when there's a mental health issue, right? To be able to de-escalate that situation. We absolutely need to be investing there, putting the dollars behind that. It makes sense to be a broader regional approach because we know that each municipality to be able to have the resources for that might be harder than, again, making sure there's someone available to cover a broader space and a broader distance there. So that's an important investment, and it leads, thank goodness, to better outcomes when you engage in that way. When you talk more broadly, though, about the relationship between policing and certainly our communities, we've got to build that trust. And I think for our officers, I think they understand fundamentally that you need a community with you to make your job safer and be more effective. But that community needs to trust that you're not going to inflict harm upon them when a call is made or help is needed, right? Serve and protect. So I think it's making sure we've got the training, the bias training, all the other pieces that our officers need. It's making sure we're creating spaces to interact with the community policing that exists, so there's positive interactions, relationships built that then can carry forward, when there's a need to engage in a more rapid response situation. So all of these, I think, are important in terms of building the community relationships that have to exist both ways.
Okay, great. Thank you. How do you plan on responding to whether it's anti-Asian hate or just a rise in general in these hate crimes?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think unfortunately we're pushing back against a national climate where those who have the loudest offices are stoking some of this, right? Making it worse. So first and foremost, it's using the bully pulpit here in New Jersey, right? The loudest voice you have to say, listen, it's unacceptable. We celebrate our diversity here, right? And it will not be tolerated in any way. And as we mentioned before, right, it's aggressively going after crimes that are committed, right? That's an important piece and a part of deterrence, but it's through education as well. It's through community engagement and involvement. You mentioned it before in one of your first questions, right? Really proud of living here in Montclair, where there's a strong effort, especially by the AAPI community, to engage others and have conversations and show and celebrate and discuss culture, and all of that is helpful. So certainly it's using all those tools, both on the law enforcement side and the preventative side. It's on the education side, and it's the engagement side in the community as well. I think all of those are going to be important pieces to really bring that down, and certainly to make sure folks feel protected.
Great. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are pretty much out of time, and I think we got through a lot of information. I think that this will help inform some of our voters. So just to wrap up, why don't you talk to them a little bit more about why they should vote for you?
Yeah, well, listen, let me be really clear. Folks, this is our chance. This is our chance to not rely on millionaires, billionaires, folks funded by the big political bosses, folks who are funded by Wall Street, like we're running now, folks who are funded by Elon Musk, including on the Democratic side, folks who are funded by the big developers, folks who, I go down the line. But I think we all have to break out of what we've been conditioned to think, which is that somehow we're going to elect someone who's totally backed by the rich, the powerful, the politically connected, and then they're going to fight for our interests. It's why we are where we just seem to be frustrated, right? Always, and think the system is not working for us, because it's not. The system's designed to work exactly the way it was designed, and it's not for us. This is our chance to change that. It's as core to the reason of why I'm running now as all the policies we discussed. It's about changing a system, and that means right now changing who we elect, finding somebody from the middle class, fighting for the middle class. I understand the privilege I start with here with just, the support of middle class folks, educators, and others, and as we grow that, yes. And I'm asking for your support because we can change a system to make it work for us and not someone else. So thank you for listening to me today. And I hope between now and June 10th to have your support and your vote.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate having me.
The primary election is on June 10th. Voting by mail has already started, and you can vote early from June 3rd to the 8th. Thank you all so much for watching.